My sister said I would never understand my mother, but then my mother hugged me and said, "You are the only one who understands me right now." My name is Maya Tron. I am 31, single, and an architect building a career at a dynamic design firm in Portland, Oregon. My world is shaped by straight lines and right angles, by the precision of technical drawings and the logical beauty of architecture. I find satisfaction in translating abstract ideas into tangible structures, where every detail has a reason for being. Every space serves a clear purpose. Perhaps it is this clear, somewhat mechanical way of thinking that makes me feel like I am standing outside a mysterious maze when I try to understand my mother, Mrs. Antron, an inner world full of twists and turns, complex emotions and actions that seem to defy all the rules of logic I know. I love my independent life in a bright rented apartment in the Pearl District, where I can arrange the space as I like, where I can focus completely on my passionate but equally stressful job. It is a complete contrast to the life of my older sister, Lena. She is 6 years older than me, has a peaceful husband and 2 lovely children. Her family lives in a quiet suburb, not far from my parents' house, and Lena always prides herself on being a good wife, a good mother, and above all, the only daughter in the world who can understand our mother's deepest feelings. And she never hesitated to use that understanding ability to judge me. The phone call a few days ago was a clear example. The cause was a rather sudden and incomprehensible decision by my mother. She announced that she would cancel the upcoming Thanksgiving trip to visit relatives in California. This was a trip that the whole family had planned together for months. The plane tickets had been booked, the gifts had been prepared. The reason she gave was simply that I'm not feeling well, even though just the day before she had been excitedly talking about what to cook to bring. I, with my already busy work schedule and having to rearrange everything to be able to go with the family, probably couldn't hide the disappointment and frustration in my voice when I complained to Lena over the phone. "I really don't understand, Mom," I said. "Why do you always change at the last minute? All my plans are ruined." Immediately, Lena assumed the role of the responsible older sister, the spokesperson for the emotions she thought I could never reach. "Maya, you will never understand your mother." Her voice rang out, an irritatingly familiar mix of weariness, sympathy, for her, and undisguised condescension, for me. "You're always so self-absorbed, so concerned with your work, your deadlines, your dry, logical drawings. Have you ever tried to stop for a minute, forget about your architect's calculations, and try to feel, to put yourself in your mother's shoes?" She continued her familiar song. "Mom is almost 65 years old, Maya. Dad has been gone for almost 10 years. Do you know how lonely and empty she is? Her health has been getting worse lately. She often has back pain and insomnia. Sometimes she just wants to stay home in peace and not go anywhere far. You only know how to blame her and never try to find out the underlying cause. You are too rational, too selfish, too heartless to understand those things." Heartless? Selfish? Rational to the point of being insensitive? Those words were like poisoned arrows shot straight at me. Was I really such a bad daughter? I asked myself. I may not be good at expressing my feelings with flowery words, and I cannot sit for hours and talk to my mother like Lena. But I have never stopped loving and caring for my mother in my own way. I call home regularly twice a week, although sometimes the conversation only revolves around brief inquiries about her health and work. I never forget her birthday, Mother's Day, or any other holiday, always trying to choose practical gifts that I think she will need. I fly home 3 or 4 times a year, although each trip from Portland to the city where my mother and sister live costs me a whole day of travel and a small fortune. I remember the time my mother's heating system broke down in the middle of winter, and I stayed up all night calling an emergency repairman from Portland. I remember the time my mother had trouble with complicated insurance paperwork after my father died, and I flew back, spent the whole weekend sitting and arranging everything for her. And sometimes, when I knew my mother needed money to fix the house or buy something necessary but didn't want to bother Lena, I would quietly transfer a large sum of money into her account, just saying it was the year-end bonus I wanted to share with you. I did all of that, not out of obligation, but out of genuine love. But perhaps my practical, somewhat dry way of expressing affection did not match the expectations of my mother and Lena. They needed gentle words, warm hugs, emotional empathy, and sharing. Things that I, with my somewhat closed nature and logical thinking, was not good at expressing outwardly. My mother, Mrs. Antran, is a woman who carries within her many layers of culture and past. As a Vietnamese immigrant, she has experienced many difficulties and hardships while building a new life in America with my father. She maintains traditional values, always puts family first, but also carries within herself worries and burdens that are not easy to share. Since my father, Mr. Minh Tran, a quiet but gentle man, suddenly passed away from a heart attack nearly 10 years ago, my mother has become more withdrawn, sinking deeper into her complex inner world. She worries to the point of excess. Everything in the world seems to be a source of anxiety for her. The health of her children and grandchildren, the world economy, the unpredictable weather, even the price of vegetables at the market increasing by a few cents. Her emotions fluctuate like the stock market. There are days when she is full of energy, cooking, cleaning, telling cheerful stories. But there are also days when she just sits quietly by the window, staring into the distance, sighing sadly over and over again. And sometimes, she suddenly gets angry over nothing. A careless word from me or Lena can make her feel offended and angry for hours. And my mother's incomprehensible and sometimes even irrational actions were really a difficult problem for me. I can never forget the day she took the 24K gold wedding jewelry, the only and most precious love token that my father gave my mother on their wedding day, to the gold shop to sell without any hesitation. That was the jewelry that she had kept like a treasure in a dark red velvet box for more than 30 years, occasionally taking it out to admire and clean carefully. When Lena and I discovered it and almost shouted to ask why, my mother just waved her hand, saying strangely calmly, "Oh, I'm old. I don't wear these things anymore. Gold has increased in value. It's better to sell it to get money to buy random things. Leaving it in the house makes me worry about thieves." But I knew that wasn't the real reason. My mother's eyes at that time, although trying to appear normal, still couldn't hide a deep sadness, a vague helplessness. But she didn't say anything, and I didn't know how to ask further. Then there were the times she refused to attend important family events: the wedding of her beloved nephew, Lena's son's college graduation, warm Christmas parties. The reasons she gave were always, "I'm tired, I don't like crowded places, I'm busy." Those refusals made everyone feel disappointed and confused because she was a person who valued family relationships and kinship. My mother's way of managing money was also full of contradictions. She always complained about her meager pension and the increasingly expensive cost of living. There were times when she was so frugal that she had to go to the market several times to compare the prices of each bunch of vegetables and cook a pot of braised meat to eat sparingly for the whole week. However, I occasionally saw her buy an expensive new coffee maker even though she rarely drank coffee, or I discovered large sums of money being withdrawn from her bank account without any clear explanation. When I asked, my mother often evaded, "Oh, I just bought some small things," or "I lent some to a relative in the countryside." I tried to understand, tried to explain those contradictions with my own logic. Was my mother hiding some health problem? Or was she having real financial difficulties that she didn't want to talk about? Or was she having a new relationship after my father's death that she didn't want her children to know about? I tried to ask tactfully, tried to offer to help her manage her finances, tried to suggest that she go for regular health checkups. But all my efforts were met with a wall of silence or avoidance from my mother. Gradually, I had to accept that there were things in my mother's private world that I could never fully understand. I chose to respect that privacy, although I still couldn't help but wonder and worry. While I struggled with unanswered questions, Lena seemed confident in her ability to understand her mother. She always seemed to know how to please her mother. She could sit for hours listening to her mother talk about her nameless sorrows, patiently nodding in sympathy. She knew what her mother liked to eat, what TV shows she liked to watch, how she liked to hear compliments. And she never failed to use that understanding to highlight my indifference. "Mom just needs someone to listen, Maya," she would say in a patronizing tone. "Why do you keep trying to come up with solutions? Sometimes Mom just needs to share. You don't understand that." Perhaps because of that difference, my mother also seemed to have more affection and trust for Lena. Little secrets, intimate thoughts, my mother often chose Lena to share. That made me, although I didn't want to admit it, a little sad, feeling like an outsider in their close mother-daughter relationship. The invisible distance between me and my mother continued to exist, reinforced by unresolved misunderstandings and judgment from Lena. Lena's criticism in our recent phone call, "You'll never understand your mother," kept gnawing at me, persistent and irritating. It touched on a deep-seated feeling of inadequacy about my relationship with my mother. I really wanted to argue back, to shout that I loved her too, I cared about her too, I just showed it differently. But at the same time, a part of me wondered, was I so rational, so focused on my work and my own life, that I actually missed her silent distress signals? Could I have done better to bridge that gap? That nagging feeling prompted me to make a decision that surprised even me. I would go home this weekend. No warning. Just to come, to stay for a day or two, without judgment, without trying to solve the problem, just to be present, to observe, to listen with all my heart, and hope that somehow I could find a bridge to reconnect with my mother. But as soon as I stepped into the suburban house on Saturday afternoon, I knew something was wrong. The silence was heavy, different from the usual warmth. My mother opened the door, her face pale and haggard, her eyes sunken with worry and lack of sleep. Her smile at me was so forced and weak that it made my heart clench. Lena was also sitting in the living room, her face scowling, her eyes red and puffy. She just glanced at me coldly and then turned away, clearly not happy with my sudden appearance. "What's wrong, Mom? Lena?" I asked immediately, my unease rising. "You don't look well. Is something serious wrong?" My mother shook her head, trying to act normal. "No, it's nothing. It's just, I'm a little tired. You came home without telling me. It surprised me." Her voice was trembling. Lena grumbled, her voice full of annoyance. "If I go back now, what will I do? It will only make my mother worry more." The attitude of both of them made me even more convinced that something was very wrong, something they were trying to hide from me. That dinner was almost completely silent, so heavy it was hard to breathe. My mother barely touched her chopsticks, just sat quietly, her eyes occasionally looking into the distance. Lena ate very quickly and then found an excuse to go to her room to talk on the phone. I tried to make some small talk about work, about the weather, but no one responded. That evening, after Lena drove to her house in the neighborhood, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I had to know what was going on. I went up to my mother's bedroom and knocked. She was sitting on the bed, the lights off, the only light coming in from the street lamp outside the window. She was fiddling with a stack of papers that looked like medical records. "Mom?" I called softly, entering the room and sitting on the edge of the bed. "Can you tell me the truth? I'm really worried about you. No matter what happens, I want to be by your side, to face it with you." Maybe it was the determination in my voice, or maybe it was the exhaustion and desperation that had reached its peak. But my mother no longer tried to hide it. She burst into tears, the sobs that had been suppressed for so long bursting out. I hugged my mother's thin, shaking shoulders, my heart aching. I had never seen my mother so weak and helpless. A long time later, when the crying had subsided, my mother looked up, her red eyes looking at me with pain. "Maya," her voice was hoarse, almost a whisper. Can you help me with something? Something very important." "What is it?" "Don't be shy, just tell me." I held my mother's cold hand tightly. "Tomorrow, can you take me to the hospital? I have a follow-up appointment with Dr. Lee at the Night Cancer Center. I can't go alone anymore. And I don't want your sister Lena to know about this, at least not yet." "Night Cancer Center?" My ears were ringing. Cancer? My mother had cancer? The most terrifying questions and images flashed through my mind. Why was she hiding it? How bad was it? Seeing my shocked and panicked expression, my mother just shook her head slightly, tears rolling down her face again. She tremblingly handed me the medical record she was holding in her hand. "Son, read it, and you will understand." My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. Biopsy results, CT scans, MRI scans, chemotherapy and radiation regimens. The medical terms were unfamiliar, but the meaning was clear and grim. Breast cancer, stage 4, metastasized to the bones. The world around me collapsed. My mother had terminal cancer, and she had been fighting it alone, enduring the pain alone, facing her fear alone for almost a year without telling her children. I looked up at my mother, my throat choked, unable to speak. Why? Why did she have to do that? As if reading the question in my eyes, my mother began to tell me, her voice broken and filled with tears. She told me about the day she received the diagnosis that was like a bolt from the blue. She told me about her fear, her despair, and her decision to keep it a secret. I don't want you to worry or be sad because of me. Lena just gave birth to her second child, and she has so many things to worry about. Your job is stressful and you live far away. I don't want to be a burden. She told of the lies she had told to get chemotherapy, of the days she spent lying in bed because of the side effects of the drugs, of the sleepless nights of pain and fear of impending death. She told of having to sell her wedding anniversary jewelry, her last precious possession, to pay for expensive medications that insurance did not cover. She told of the extreme loneliness of having to face everything alone, without a word to share, without a shoulder to lean on. I tried to be strong, Maya, she said through sobs. I tried to fight this alone. But now, I can't. The doctors say it's gotten worse. The treatment plan is going to be much harder. I have to make some big decisions about whether to continue aggressive treatment or just palliative care. I can't make these decisions on my own. I need you. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. Lena, she loves me, I know. But she's too weak, too emotional. If she knew the truth, she would probably break down. I can't let her see me like this. And you? She gripped my hand tighter. You're stronger, more rational. You can help me analyze the situation, help me make the right choice. I know I can count on you now, Maya. The whole truth, painful and cruel, is now completely exposed. The veil of secrecy that has shrouded my mother for so many years has been lifted, revealing a woman struggling against a cruel fate, a mother with boundless love and sacrifice. All the misunderstandings, all the feelings of distance, all the reproaches in me disappeared in an instant. All that remained was love, sorrow, and boundless regret for not realizing it sooner, for not being by my mother's side sooner. My rational and realistic shell now became meaningless in the face of my mother's great pain. I threw my arms around her, the hug I should have given her a long time ago. Mom, I sobbed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I'll be here with you. I'm not going anywhere. We'll face this together, Mom. My mother also hugged me tightly, as if finding a solid support after many days of struggling alone. She buried her head in my shoulder, crying like a child. And then, between sobs, she whispered in my ear, words more precious than any treasure in the world. Maya, my daughter, thank you for being here with me. You're the only one who truly understands me right now. That sentence, simple but filled with so much emotion, so much trust, touched the bottom of my heart. It was the acknowledgement, the deepest connection I had ever had with my mother. It erased all of Lena's criticism, all of her comparisons. It affirmed that true understanding does not lie in empty words or superficial sympathy. It lies in being present at the right time, in the ability to see through the pain behind the layers, in the willingness to take responsibility and face the storm together. And at that sacred moment, I knew that my mother-son relationship had entered a completely new page, deeper and more meaningful than ever. The next day, I called my company in Portland and asked for an extended, unpaid leave of absence, citing a family emergency. I knew it was a decision that would impact my burgeoning career, but nothing was more important than my mother. I moved back home with her, converting my old bedroom into a temporary workspace so I could care for her while also handling important work remotely if necessary. My life has been turned upside down. Instead of architectural drawings and stressful meetings, My days now revolve around taking my mom to doctor appointments, learning about cancer treatments, cooking healthy meals, and most importantly, spending time with her, listening and encouraging her. The rationality and problem analysis that I previously thought were barriers in my relationship with my mother now became my most powerful weapons in this battle. I threw myself into research like the most complex architectural project. I read hundreds of medical documents, participated in online forums for cancer patients, searched for information about good doctors, leading specialized hospitals. I created detailed spreadsheets to track the treatment schedule, the medications my mother needed to take, and important health indicators. I prepared a long list of questions to ask the doctor at each follow-up visit. I became the primary spokesperson and decision-maker with my mother. I no longer avoided difficult discussions about her illness, her prognosis, and the potentially risky treatment options. I presented all the information clearly and objectively, analyzing the pros and cons of each option so that she could make a final decision based on her full understanding and her own wishes. At the same time, I was also the one who took care of my mother the most attentively. I learned how to cook nutritious soups and immune-boosting juices. I patiently reminded my mother to take each pill, measured her temperature and blood pressure every day. I took my mother to the hospital for radiation therapy, sat by her side for hours, read books to her, told funny stories to help her forget her fatigue and pain. On nights when my mother couldn't sleep because of the side effects of the medication, I stayed up with her, massaged her tired legs, or simply held her hand tightly, silently facing her invisible fear. In those moments, I felt a deep connection, a sacred love that I had never felt completely before. I also faced another difficult task, talking to Lena. I knew I couldn't keep it from her forever. I chose a quiet afternoon, when it was just the two of us, to tell her the whole truth about Mom's illness. Lena was shocked. She couldn't believe that Mom had hidden such a shocking fact from me, and even less that I was the one Mom had chosen to share that secret with. At first, there was a bit of hurt, a bit of pride in Lena's reaction. Why did Mom tell me and not you? You're the one who's close to Mom, taking care of her every day? But when I calmly explained my mother's reasons, recounted what she had gone through alone, and shared my own feelings of guilt and regret for misunderstanding her, Lena began to soften. She cried a lot, cried because she loved her mother, cried because she blamed herself for being so careless, for not recognizing the unusual signs sooner. And she also apologized to me. Sorry for always judging, for always thinking that she understood her mother best, without knowing that understanding was only superficial. From that day on, my relationship with Lena also entered a new phase. There was no more hidden competition or criticism. We became allies, sharing the responsibility of taking care of our mother. Lena, with her gentleness and delicate care, took care of daily meals, talking, and encouraging my mother. And I, with my strength and organizational ability, continued to be in charge of medical issues, finances, and important decisions. We complemented each other, supported each other, and formed a solid rear for my mother in this arduous battle. My father, though gone, seemed to be present in this newfound family unity. We often talked about him, about the good memories, about the love he had for my mother and the children. That seemed to give us spiritual strength. The battle with terminal cancer is never easy. There were times when it seemed hopeless, when Mom's condition worsened, when the side effects of the drugs exhausted her. But we never gave up. We cried together, laughed together, prayed together, and fought together. And then, our tireless efforts, along with Mom's extraordinary will, paid off. After nearly a year and a half of intensive and challenging treatment, the latest test results showed that Mom's condition had significantly improved. The metastatic tumors were under control, some even shrinking. Mom's health improved significantly. She was able to walk around the house by herself, cook simple meals for herself, and the smile was truly back on her face, no longer forced or filled with sadness. It was a miracle, a priceless gift that life had given to my family after so many storms. We knew that the battle was not over yet, that my mother still needed to continue to be monitored and treated. But at least we had more time, more hope, and most importantly, we had each other. Looking back, I realize that I have changed a lot. I am no longer the architect who only knows dry lines and numbers. I have learned to listen with all my heart, to feel the pain that cannot be expressed in words, to love and express love more completely. I understand that true strength does not lie in hiding emotions, but in daring to face the weaknesses of myself and those I love. My mother has also changed. She is more open, more willing to share her feelings. She no longer tries to act strong. She has learned to rely on her children, to receive love and care. The invisible distance between me and my mother has completely disappeared, replaced by a deep connection, a sacred understanding built from the twists and turns of life. My sister's criticism that day, "You will never understand your mother," is now just a distant echo, no longer weighty. Because I know, and more importantly, my mother knows, that I have understood her in the deepest, most meaningful way. Her hug and whisper that night, "You are the only one who understands me right now," has become a compass, a source of motivation to help me overcome all difficulties, and forever a testament to the sacred motherly love, to the healing power of understanding and sincere love. It turns out that to understand a mother, sometimes there is no need to try to decode all the mysteries, but simply to be there, present with all your heart, and ready to go through the stormy days with your mother. Differences in generations, personalities, and living conditions can sometimes create walls and unnecessary misunderstandings in family relationships. We often easily judge others through our own lens, forgetting that each person has their own burdens and worries that are not easy to share. Have you ever felt like you truly understood your parents? Or have you ever felt helpless before their unpredictable actions and emotions? In your opinion, what is the most important key to opening the door to understanding and healing emotional rifts in the family, especially between different generations? Please share your story and thoughts.